Hello everyone, and welcome back. It's Thursday, and you know what that means. It's Misfits Racing League time, and of course, joining me on a Thursday for Tier 2 action, Unicorn. How you doing?
I'm doing good, Striff. Thank you very much. Looking forward to another exciting race at Monaco. And it was a good race on Tuesday. We saw a lot of close battling as, Monaco kind of alludes to that with the close proximity of the track.
Yes, of course, a very tight overtaking circuit. Not a lot of overtaking being the ideal thing here. Of course, Monaco, extremely important in qualifying for these drivers to get those cars as far out in front as they can. Of course, the thing to look at here is just how tight this circuit really is. You can see it coming up on screen now. Of course, it is a street circuit, the tightest of them all, I would say, and 19 turns of pure intensity. The drivers don't have a lot of breathing space here. They need to be concentrating head down through the entirety of the lap around here. Of course, this is round 7 of Season 3 MRL action, and we've already seen these drivers do battle through 6 rounds, starting things off on, in Albert Park for the Australian Grand Prix. Of course, we've seen them go through Bahrain, Vietnam, China, through the Netherlands, Spain most recently, and now we're here in Monte Carlo. And of course, next week we'll be in Baku, following that Canada, France, Austria, and that will be, of course, the end to the first half of our season here. And a lot of our grids following this calendar. We now have 4 grids of racing action to bring you on a week. And of course, for those of you that didn't know, the Oceanic and Asian Division applications have now opened, and that is going to be coming to you with the first race in Austria, October 1st. More details on Twitter about that. Of course, now, second half of the calendar, we're going to be going to Britain, Hungary, Belgium, Italy, Singapore, Russia, Japan, the United States, Mexico, Brazil, and we'll be finishing off our season in Abu Dhabi. Taking a look, of course, who is lining up on the grid today. This is the full-time roster. We have Kai Bacchini and Jay over at Mercedes with A2K and Yasko at Ferrari. It's Gadwin and Liam for Red Bull with Skybits and Little Bear over at McLaren. Ali Avci is the newest driver here in full-time position. He is at Renault with Undertaker F. Juicebox and Wisp for AlphaTauri, Robbo and Itzamax for Racing Point, and we have Maxim B as well as Extreme filling in for Cjoss, as Cjoss has now stepped out of a full-time seat due to other time commitments. We'll hope to see him back racing soon. Crampy and Max Inkster, the dynamic duo for Haas, and Domi and Squid over rounding off our grid at Williams. Now we take a look at our standings here following Spain, round 6. First thing to note, steward reports. Kai Bacchini has been promoted to P2 following a time removal, moving Jack to P3 and Gadwin to P4 respectively. Of course, Jack S also stepping down from his seat, and that's going to be Ali Avci taking his position. Now we look at the standings. Kai Bacchini leading this grid right now and leading this championship with 63 points. His teammate Jay not too far behind him, and it's the Williams of Domi in third. And I imagine a lot of people happy to see Williams up there, especially given the news today. Very unfortunate to hear that the Williams family is going to be stepping away after Monza. Of course, it's Mercedes leading this championship with Alfa Romeo close behind and Red Bull there in third. Now, a lot of penalties throughout the race last week. I know we're in Monaco, but of course the stewards would like to remind drivers, keep things clean, because penalty points are starting to rack up and quali bans are starting to come into effect. Now, with that, Unicorn, I do believe we are just about ready to go here racing.
Yeah, Domi's game just crashed, so we're just going to wait for him to rejoin the game, and I do believe Max Inkster is joining as well. A few people having issues with various power outages this evening and the like. So, but other than that, we should have a full grid once again for Monaco.
Yes, and with that being said, I'll take this as a very good time to just notify viewers. I am currently having a storm blowing through my current area, and that may cause a stoppage in footage. Hopefully Unicorn is recording. And regardless if there's a stoppage in coverage, we'll hope to have all of that video action for you on our YouTube channel as we just wait for the final driver to get back into this lobby.
Yeah, this is Max Inkster. Give him one more chance to get in here, otherwise...
One thing to talk about while we are waiting is, of course, the MRL EU grid that took to the streets of Monaco this past Tuesday. And what a race it was. Not as many DNFs, I think, as one might expect. It was a solid race start to finish, to be very honest. And just a lot of fun overall. Of course, the highlights for that on our YouTube channel, as well as the full replay. But that was round 2. And I think it was you that had said it, Unicorn. Trial by fire for that grid, considering everybody learning how they drive with one another, racecraft, weaknesses, strengths, and Monaco is a real a real tester, that's for sure.
Yeah, definitely a difficult one to get right. And like you said, when it's only round 2, it's difficult when you don't know exactly how everyone races. So it doesn't look like Max Inkster is going to be able to get into the lobby, so we're going to go ahead and get underway. 19 drivers then for this evening.
Just as we saw in the European grid, of course, not for the faint of heart, this circuit. Monaco, one of those races you see a significant drop-off in attendance, and you're about to see why. It is an extremely tight circuit, not a lot of overtaking opportunities, and it is imperative that drivers utilize that patience that I imagine racing drivers don't have a lot of, given they're looking to be at the front all the time.
Yeah, you gotta imagine that when you're at Monaco, you even if you're a faster car, it's not quite as easy as it is in another track. To demonstrate that in terms of getting past and track position is absolutely key here. So not only is the 18-minute qualifying session critical to get right around here, but nailing your pit strategy as well and trying to minimize damage so you don't have to take too many trips into the pit lane. 2 very critical points during tonight's race.
One thing I'm curious to note here is each race, of course, dynamic weather. These racers get a roll of the dice each session they enter, and now we are in a clear qualifying session, it would seem, but of course we aren't entirely sure what we're going to face during this race, so we'll be waiting for a weather report, of course. But 19 drivers on this grid, just waiting for everybody to get those setups dialed in, get out there with the correct amount of fuel. Now, I think one thing these drivers are going to have to concern themselves with just as much, if not more so, than keeping it out of the other drivers on this circuit is the walls themselves. We saw a multitude of wing changes and end plates come through in MRL EU on Tuesday, and I think we're going to see a little bit of the same here.
Yeah, the walls around here, they can collect a lot of cars over the course of any race, regardless of length. But you got to keep, especially when it's 50%, you got a lot of laps and a lot of opportunity to lose chunks of your front wing, and it's not what you're going to be wanting, especially when a pit stop around here is so costly, especially if it's unplanned. So
as Cotters, who was driving in that EU grid on Tuesday, of course he is in the Red Bull, partnering none other than Dirk Chocolate, who has had a very unique start to the season. Very difficult races. Spain followed by Monaco. Of course, Dirk was on those mediums there. We have Cotters now, his teammate, looking to perhaps outdo what he did on Tuesday. Not having the most ideal race in that Red Bull was him. Now he's the first driver out here in Monaco. Maybe a little bit more confidence in the Scarlet Ferrari, but he's coming through the tunnel now. And he is going to be the first driver to set a lap here, and he's coming out down into the chicane. And this is where we saw quite a few moves on Tuesday in that MRL EU grid. A lot of drivers going down that inside into that chicane, and I think we'll see it a little bit here. One of the more ideal areas to try and get a move in, but it's a very tight moving chicane. And through this sector 3, it's such a tight, winding, and fast section. To try and go for any moves, you really need to have a lot of faith and confidence in the driver you're battling. And right now, Cotters, Unicorn, starting us out with the first lap of this qualifying.
yeah, down into the notorious turn 1 at Monaco. He's kept it very clean through there, using as much curving as he dares. And turn 1 again, one of those exciting spots on this track where you can see an overtake. Is a little bit difficult, but now down through Casino for the Ferrari. You can see him just sort of going over the bump. Some people like to come a little bit further to the right to avoid it, then down into the Grand Hotel hairpin. And we saw it on Tuesday, a lot of drivers invalidating around here, even though you've got such close track limits with the walls, but then through the tunnel for Codders in the number 25 Ferrari, and like you said, down into the chicane. Turns 10 and 11, one of the key places you can invalidate, and it doesn't look like Codders carrying as much speed as possible through there, but he's kept it clean, and that is the most important thing for any driver around Monaco. And to turns 15 and 16, just 3 more to go, including Raskas here. And then the final couple of corners just before the DRS zone to take him across the line for the first lap this evening. And he's going to open with a 112.8 in the Ferrari there.
Now it's Ali Avci in the Renault. He'll be second across. It's a 111.7 from him. He's on the medium compound tires, and Jones jumps ahead a 110.9. But he gets crossed over into second. Domi, a 110.7 on the medium compound tires. He's in the Williams. Of course, we saw him third place in this Drivers' Championship. Now that's his teammate Squid, who's had an issue outside of turn 1. We saw it in the rear of Domi there as he was coming up the hill.
Yeah, and Domi being that high up there on medium tires. Medium tires a little bit risky in qualifying at Monaco. Early on, you're all right because you can go out for another run on the soft tires as Adrian goes fastest, 110.4 on the softs. But if you can qualify high up on the mediums, you're in good stead to have a later pit stop than those on the softs. There's Kai Bacchini at 110.3. But you need, like we said, the qualifying here is so critical as it's so hard to overtake. So qualifying the softs for a lot of these drivers is probably going to be the more attractive option out of the 2 tires.
Well, tire strategy here can be a real gamble because one thing that we can, of course, talk about definitely around the Principality Unicorn is safety car. And the likeliness of a safety car here is very, very high right now. Only 9 drivers setting times were on board with the Alfa Romeo of Maxim B. Now, he, of course, has a very good standing in the championship. His teammate Sejoss, who would be top 5 as well. Of course, Alfa Romeo second in this championship presently. He's going to be looking to have a good performance today. Jack S is reserving, as Extreme has not been able to make this race. But he's coming through, and he's on medium compound tires. And the strategy differential that we're seeing so far is going to be very unique to see come race time. We'll see how many drivers in that top 10 are on different tires. Right now, it is, of course, that majority soft compound with 2 drivers on the mediums. Excuse me, as somebody has just crossed with a faster time on some softs, I believe.
Went 5th, fastest 11.1. And you can already see Domi, he's switching out onto the soft compound tires. So even though he's currently sitting in 3rd place, he just really wants that track position. You want to be as far up this grid as you possibly can be.
One thing to note here, Crampy in the Haas, struggling right now coming through Sector 2. But of course, his teammate Max Singster has now graced us with his presence, and he is taking up the mantle over there in the other Haas. He was not here when the session began, but now he has gotten into things, so we'll see if he's able to get out for a time, and it looks like he's leaving the garage right now.
Yeah, and fingers crossed for him he doesn't suffer that fateful glitch, which we've seen all too frequently, where drivers who join mid-session get put to the back, as Liam comes across the line with a 110.9 on medium compound tires, so not a bad time for the Red Bull.
Speaking of Red Bulls, it's his teammate Gadwin now, who we saw cross the line 3rd as a result of penalties handed down last week around Spain, of course, due to the penalty that Kai Bacchini had removed. He was now slotted into a 4th place finish, but of course he'll be looking to bounce back today. He's on those soft compound tires coming down through that hairpin.
Alpha through the 3rd section. He just scraped the wall a little bit. No damage on the racing point. He's going to complete the lap anyway. It's a 112.8, so he's definitely going to want to improve, but already getting a little bit close to the walls for his liking, I would imagine.
Very busy circuit, very tight circuit, makes it hard to get a proper lap in, and it looks like Gadwin's come up on some traffic, and that's Max Singster, and Max Singster once again and Gadwin there with a thrust of frustration. Steward's not going to be happy about that either. Max Singster impeding him though. This is what we're talking about drivers before this race maybe wanting to avoid things here in Monaco, not to rack up those points on their license. Max Singster has not only invalidated Gadwin, but he's unfortunately invalidated his own lap. So, going to be important to let drivers by. I believe that's Domi. No, excuse me, it's actually Squid on a flyer, but Domi's finishing up one right now in this Williams.
Yeah, A-Lord in the Ferrari. He was on a flyer, but down into turn 12, just slammed into the wall through that tight or fast left-hander, as it is one of the fastest corners on the circuit. But
Domi
that's going to retire him to the pits for a bit of time.
110-1 from Domi in the Williams. He's on provisional pole now. Kai Bacchini, the driver that is closest on the times, that's going to be looking to outdo that. Currently, it appears he's on an in-lap. As Ali Afchi flying up the hill right now in the Renault. He's at 110.4 right now on the soft compound tires. Or if I'm not mistaken, yes, he did set his first lap on the softs. He's going out again on the softs, looking to improve that 110.4. Currently 8 minutes remaining here in the qualifying session.
Squid in the Williams as well. He's just done a 111 flat. That just bumps Crampy down a place, who's coming out of the pits as well as Verstappen in the racing point.
Max Singster's had a major issue. It's cost Jack S now, and it looks like Max Singster, who was late to qualifying, coming into qualifying, causing all sorts of issues here, and you hate to see it, Unicorn, but of course the stewards right now, pen to paper, I imagine, taking note.
Yeah, I think it's cost Adrian in the AlphaTauri just starting a flying lap, but Max Inkster, he's off and damaged his car, retired. Obviously no attempt for him to move it because he's missing a wheel, but through those last couple of turns, 18 and 19, and that, I think, cost Adrian going into his flying lap. He's already preserving ERS and such, so he might just go again. 7 minutes left in the session.
Little Bear in the McLaren right now. He's coming through Sector 2. He's 6.5 seconds up through Sector 2 right now. He's just taken off his front left end plate, but he hasn't invalidated yet. We'll see if he wants to continue through on this lap. He's on the medium compound tires right now, and he is going to finish. So what's the improvement going to be like for him, and where is it going to put him on this grid? 7-second improvement into P12.
Yeah, a lot of cars are on track right now, and still 4 cars, as someone's said a lot of times. The Alfa Romeo, sorry.
Max in B now. He's set a 110.9 on the soft compound tires. He set 6th fastest here so far.
Crampy with a slight improvement puts him up into 7th place, a 110.9 from the Haas.
On board with the Racing Point. Verstappen, who is in a reserve role today, he's coming down through, starting a flyer down into turn 1.
Yeah, and he invalidated his previous attempt. I'm not quite sure whether it was an outlap or not, with the game still not quite displaying that little label there correctly. But we've got a few drivers yet to set times. A-Lord, Skyvitz, and Gadwin all out at the moment, as Skyvitz a big slide out of turn 8 on entrance to the tunnel. Just ahead of him. Gadwin, very slippery out of the Nouvelle chicane for the Red Bull. And the McLaren behind him, Skyvitz, travelling faster. He's tagged the wall and invalidated his lap.
Ooh, little unsteady there for Verstappen. He brushes the left-hand wall there, and I believe he's taken an end plate off as a result. He has. I think he will still continue to finish this. No, he will not, so he has decided to box. Still time to go once again, though.
Yeah, the mistake cost Gadwin. He's down in 16th place, 113 for him in the Red Bull. A-Lord then in the Ferrari, a 113.2, again down at the bottom. That's 17th place for him.
Driver to keep an eye on. Domi has just started once again another flyer as Kai Bacchini's crossed a 109.681, putting him into that provisional spot. Now it's Domi who's flying for pole, who's going to be looking to undo that time. Currently down through Sector 1 by a fraction. 0.29 was the differential, of course. Now coming down through into the tunnel section.
Yeah, and we've seen it time and time again. Kai Bacchini's pace in qualifying absolutely rapid, and Monaco is a track where that skill of his absolutely pays off. As Domi, a big lock up down into the Nouvelle chicane, that's going to cost him the lap. And he invalidates after cutting off that turn 10. He hasn't damaged the car though, so he could go again now if he doesn't feel like he's got time to dive back into the pits. He should do though if he chooses for a fresh set of tyres.
Aliavci right now, P4 in the Renault, a 1:10.4 the current time, and he's looking to improve it, and right now he's doing so, nearly 0.5 up, almost half a second, but now he's brushed those walls coming out in Sector 3 here, and now he comes into Rascasse, and he's opted to jump into the box here, Unicorn, so not able to improve just yet, but he's shown he has a little bit more time in the tank, as it were, and Adrian not going to be happy as he's on an invalidated lap, and he's going to more than likely box here.
Yeah, we're getting into those closing stages now where the track is at its prime, you know, temperature, etc.
Liam in the Red Bull, excuse me, Unicorn has jumped into pole position, a 109.6, and I don't think Kai or Domi were expecting him, but the reigning Tier 2 champion has now come a knocking, and that Red Bull is into pole.
Yeah, he not messing around there. 109.6 as Domi into the wall. He's lost an end plate, and that is going to cost him huge chunks of time through Sector 3. So he is unlikely going to be able to defend for the front row, and he is coming into the pits, and he would need a very rapid turnaround to get him out for another flying lap, depending on whether we get that desync somehow happens between drivers and spectators. But Liam, that is an absolutely incredible lap from him. Kai Bacchini is coming out once more in response to the Red Bull.
Yeah, one thing to note here is 2 minutes left in qualifying. Qualifying's so crucial right now. Let's take a look at the gap to leader right now. From first down to, we'll say 6 there, there's just about a second. And, of course, we have Tier 1 racing action later where we saw gaps throughout this season go all the way from first down to 18th within a second of one another. I imagine we'll see something similar tonight for Monaco. Of course, Tier 2 doing pretty good. EU had a fairly tight grid as well, so still some time left. A lot of drivers out on out laps or flyers presently, and we'll be looking to get all of those laps for you. Skybits right now in 20th. He is on an out lap, and he's yet to do anything here in this session. He's already had a podium yet this season, and we'll see if he's able to put some of that speed we know him for onto the streets of Monte Carlo today. But of course, no time set yet. Very risky from him. Very easy to invalidate or make a mistake here around Monaco. So it's all or nothing for the McLaren.
Yeah, and Cotters, you may have just noticed, retired from the session out of turn 8, was facing the wrong way, and his front left wheel was completely severed from the car. So big mistake from him. He's starting no higher than 16th on the grid as Kai Bacchini starts his probably final flying lap of the session in the Mercedes, trying to dethrone Liam.
Kai, who's had a very unique season, currently leading this championship in the Mercedes. His teammate Jay, who's been absent as of late due to some time restrictions, of course, being filled in by Jones today. But Kai, very unique season. Monaco, spoke to him a little bit before the race. Very nervous circuit for a lot of these drivers. I've seen Kai race here before in February in a completely different league. He had a strong standing in that league against some very tough competition. Some idiot Brownie in that race. We'll see how he goes here in Tier 2.
Yeah, and speaking of Kai's teammate, Jones, obviously reserving tonight. 4th place right now on the medium compound tyre, so he could be one to look out for in this race as qualifying is finished, and obviously those drivers on flying laps. Still able to set times as Undertaker in the Renault. He's going to cross the line, opens the DRS. It's going to be a pretty quick time from him. A 110.7, that puts him 8th place. A 7/10 improvement for the Renault. And Cavaccini.
Yeah, he scored right in front there. Right in front, or right behind, excuse me, of Verstappen, and now Verstappen flying behind him. We'll see if there's any kind of hold up for him, but he is a 10th up through Sector 1 right now. And there's a variety of different suspects on this grid trying to get last times in here. And ooh, that's Verstappen. He's had an issue outside of the hairpin. He's got traffic coming through as well. It's going to be very tough for him to get that car turned around here, as he's just looking to that circuit. Domi now coming through. Oh, now it's Adrian. He's got to get that car moving a little bit here.
Yeah, and Domi not only has did Liam knock him off the front row?
Oh, that's a tight situation. Very tight situation for Verstappen. You hate to see it. That's one of the worst places to get stuck. Doing a good job, though, trying to wait for fast movers to get by, get that car moved over. Ghosting is off in Misfits Racing League, and of course resetting to track is a penalty. Drivers are meant to slow down through yellow flags and avoid drivers just as you would have to in reality. Nobody getting away with 180 km/h pit stops either. Pit assists are off here. Full damage, strict corner cutting. We do not screw around. And of course now qualifying has finished.
A huge problem though. Down in turn 15, there's 3 cars sort of piled into each other. It's one of the Alfa Romeos. Oof. I can't tell which one. Was stopped on track, and then Skybits has run into them. And now there's a Ferrari down there as well of Gadwin. Sorry, a Red Bull of Gadwin down there. As a Ferrari of A-Lord, he's had to stop.
I do believe that's AI. All controlled cars now AI. That's, well, welcome to Monaco, ladies and gentlemen, where the drama is always here in full force. And we've seen it throughout Formula 1 history, and we've seen it throughout the past, well, 2 qualifying sessions now. But of course, Unicorn, that is going to be the Canadian Liam in the Red Bull, taking pole position here in Monaco. Cavaccini in the Mercedes lining up next to him on the front row, with Ali Avci in the Renault making his full-time debut here in Tier 2. 3rd position. Not too bad for the first race in a full-time seat. Domi there in 4th. Jones in 5th. Adrian in 6th. Verstappen in 7th. Undertaker in 8th. Maxim B in 9th. With Crampy rounding off the top 10 drivers here ahead of this race. Of course, my name is Strifium. Joining me as always is Unicorn. And before we jump into this formation lap, I'm going to just remind you, go get that bathroom break in. Get your friends, get your family, and tell us in the chat who you are rooting for here in this race.
Yeah, we were saying it just before the race that Monaco is such a hard race to predict as to who's going to win. Obviously, the favourites, if you were betting, would be those high up on the grid, as they would be for a normal race, but obviously track position even more critical around the streets of Monte Carlo. But like I was saying, Jones setting that fast time on those medium tyres. If the start goes his way and we stay safety car free for the first bit of the track, his strategy could pay off big time for him in that reserve seat at Mercedes.
All these drivers getting these things finalized ahead of this formation lap, and we'll take you through the grid once again once we get going here, as everybody wanting to get those tires set up, get the proper fuel loads. They have to take into consideration a couple of different variables that you may not see right now, and if I was on this grid, I would be taking into consideration safety cars. But of course, Liam leading us off here on this formation lap. Cavaccini in 2nd position, Ali Avci in 3rd. That's Domi in the Williams in 4th. Tell your friends, guys, that's a Williams in 4th here around Monaco. You love to see it. Jones in 5th. Adrian in 6th. Verstappen in 7th. That's Maxim in 8th, with Crampy in 9th. And Squid rounding out the top 10 of this grid in the other Williams. Wisp in 11th, Little Bear in 12th, Undertaker in 13th, and it's Jack S in 14th, reserving for Extreme today. Gadwin in 15th, Alpha in 16th, and it's Cotters and A-Lord in the 2 Ferraris, 17th and 18th respectively, as they are both in reserve positions today. Ferrari not having a good day for attendance, I suppose. Skybits in 19th, and Max Inkster, who we saw join this grid late and have a multitude of issues, bringing up the rear.
Yeah, and like you said earlier, the news of Williams, if you were going to say someone that both are in the top 10, which would be Q3 in real life, you wouldn't believe him. But here in online, in MRL, anything can happen. All the cars are equal, obviously, and one of the only teams to get both cars into that top 10. So if all goes their way, it'll be a very nice fall of points for the Williams team.
Now, one thing to note here, and I may just jinx it as we come through Sector 3, but all cars now in Sector 3, and we haven't had anybody disqualify themselves on the formation lap, which is something that's kind of a good sight to see, especially considering how Turn 1 is extremely well known for, well, causing a safety car.
Yeah, we also didn't see that many invalidations, or not at least as many as we did on Tuesday in qualifying. We saw a few, but not quite as many, so maybe the penalty situation might quite be as crazy this evening.
4, 5 red lights on here in Monaco. The lights have gone out. We have the unfortunate starting desync, but you can hear the engines are kicked on into high revs, and now waiting for these drivers to take off. Liam will be the first to go, and he is away now. We are starting racing action here around the streets of Monte Carlo. Down into Turn 1 we go. There's a big issue already. That is the Renault of Ali Afji having to take the off-ramp there. Currently Squid into 7th position, already out from 10th, and he's made out like a bandit in that Williams right now. Wheel to wheel coming up the hill right now. The AlphaTauri of Wisp in 12th position. Very tight to the rear of Undertaker. So far so good though. Not a lot of debris on circuit. That's the Ferrari of Cotters looking real tight at Gadwin. And now here's where things get tricky. And as we say, things get very tricky in this section of circuit, and we have a yellow flag going up through Sector 2. But doesn't look like any major contact there. The Renault having an issue, and there's Undertaker getting jammed in the wall, and that's going to cause a chain reaction through the hairpin.
Yeah, a lot of cars caused just a concertina effect. We have a safety car coming out, so we've got a little bit of time to breathe. I believe it was Maxime B who was the first car, whether he made a mistake or whether someone had contact with him through Turn 5. That sort of put him at a little bit of an angle down towards the hairpin, and that caused cars to bunch up. And then we had the Haas of Crampy as Undertaker retires from this race into the wall out of Turn 12. But yeah, then Crampy was 3 wide. That forced him into the wall. That caused another load of cars to back up. And then we had the Renault of Undertaker, who's now retired from this race, as we see a huge chunk of cars come into the pit lane.
Yeah, a lot of drivers.
Out of the hairpin.
A lot of drivers into that pit lane, and those drivers that were able to keep things clean within all of that chaos are going to be really getting out in front here. And speaking of getting out in front, Gadwin and Ali Avci have had a little bit of maybe an incident. We see some kind of debris coming up there, and I'm not entirely sure if that's off of Gadwin or the Renault. And now that is an issue with Alpha. What is going on with this racing point? He is jammed in the wall, and there's that front wing coming off of that car.
Yeah, there are a lot of people who have lost a lot of positions here, but there's also quite a few winners here right now. Squid started this race in 10th, now up into 4th. Then we also have the likes of Gadwin, he's up 8 places. Max Inkster started at the back of this grid and now in 9th place in that AlphaTauri. Skybits is up 9, and Alpha, he has just had that issue, so those 5 places, he's probably about to lose them all in another pit stop, or at least a pit stop.
Well, Unicorn, I think it's best we buckle in. It's going to be a long and, I think, bumpy ride. Of course, for those of you tuning in, we are here for MRL Tier 2 Monaco action. And Monaco, for those of you into the betting type of thing, you would have been correct in assuming we would have had a safety car on the opening lap, because we have now gone around twice, and we're coming across through that line, and we're going to be going around a 3rd time here, and I think we may just see it come in at the end of lap 3. But now Undertaker retiring that car.
Yeah, that crash has also put Alpha. He's into the pits for fresh set of mediums. He's also serving a penalty, it would seem. That front wing getting changed as well, so this is going to drop him He might just be able to get out in front of the Ferrari of A-Lord. I should think Jack, though, in the Alfa Romeo will beat him out.
Yeah, it appears Jack's AI-controlled car going to beat him out there. Jack currently in the Twitch chat having a laugh. We'll expect him to resume control of his car very quickly as the stewards, well, he's in a reserve role now. I guess there's not much they can do about it, but if he wants to continue racing, word to the wise, drive your car. Of course, coming through the tunnel section now is the safety car. Liam is leading this race where he began.
Yeah, and you want to retain your position, and we said starting position key. Only if you keep it though, and Liam has done just that first, and he's still in first at the moment, but he's got a safety car restart coming up for him. Whether the safety car is going to come in this lap or next, yet to be told. But Domi, he's up 2 into second, and Jones as well on those medium tyres. Safety car is coming in, so we will have the restart now once they get to that line. Jones in third right now on those mediums, as well as Squid on mediums as well in fourth. Both of them looking very good, as well as Kai on fresh mediums. Liam getting ready. Adrian picks up a 5-second time penalty, but Liam is going now. This race is restarted. Monaco with those really tight final corners. A little bit interesting and separates the grid out, unlike other tracks. But you've got Adrian. He's just picked up a 5-second time penalty. Can he get past Gadwin?
Kai Bacchini has just made it through on Squid into 4th position in the Mercedes Unicorn on turn 1. Looks like Squid, a little bit of damage perhaps. We'll have to check on the rear camera in a moment, but that's Ali Afshi very tight to the rear of Squid right now. Could be very cold tires.
Yeah, Max Inkster as well. He looks like he's under a little bit of pressure from the McLaren of Skybits, as there's been a collision out of that hairpin. The Skybits not getting the exit he wants, and now the Haas of Crampy is side by side with Maxime B. Both of them sitting a little bit damaged. Mina Bear touches the wall as well. And I should think that's not the last time we're going to see someone touch a wall here at Monaco. That's a Haas of Crampy, I believe, spinning on turn 10 into the Nouvelle Chicane. He can't move either because of all the cars coming past him. Not a good start to his race.
Well, no safety car deployed yet. Liam is off to a great restart here. Currently 1.7 seconds is the gap. Of course, he is on those soft compound tires. He's not going to be able to go as long as nearly this entire grid, realistically. Jones right now hunting down Domi for that 2nd position, and he's in the Mercedes ahead of Kai Bacchini. And I imagine Jay will be watching this race back later on, happy that well, Jones is in that car today, considering I imagine Jay would want to be right there as well.
Yeah, that Mercedes is definitely in good hands with Jones currently sitting in 3rd place. His teammate Kai Bacchini just behind him. Is he going to be able to make a move down into the Nouvelle Chicane? He's looking up the inside. He's not quite side by side. Late under braking. That's going to be side by side through the chicane. Jones having to take a trip off of the track to not only avoid crashing with his teammate, but also to retain 3rd place. But he's probably picked up a warning for that, though.
Yeah, team dynamics very much promoted here in the MRL. Of course, Jones is in a reserve position right now, and well, he may be under no obligation from Toto Wolff to be letting Kai through. Of course, Kai, the championship leader right now, Domi's going to be happy that Jones is holding him up. But of course, there's tons of racers throughout this grid with tons of speed. But Monaco, the beast that it is, so hard to overtake here. I imagine a lot of these racers just want to let loose. And now there's Jones. He's having a little bit of a slip up. Kai Bacchini and him wheel to wheel now. And that's Kai Bacchini out in front. And very, very nicely done there. Very clean. Kai almost into the rear of Domi now into this very hard braking hairpin. And Kai Bacchini has already caught up to the Williams. And it looks like he may even have a good enough exit to get a run on Domi here.
Yeah, we saw him try it last lap on his teammate. Is he going to try again? It looks like he's a little bit too far back this time, but he's getting very close to the rear of that Williams, and the tyre difference here really not costing Kai Bacchini any time at the moment. Obviously, Dome on those soft tyres that he started on. 5 laps old. They don't go too far around Monaco. As
and
Dome, a lock up that cost Jones a little bit of time as he just tapped the rear of his teammate.
yeah, one thing to note here, Domi, that front left end plate is missing, costing him some time, and he's on those soft compound tires as well. And the one thing to note is, although he has no end plate, and although he's on older tires, he is just sitting that car in the right spots right now, as Kai Baccini can't move through. And the track of Monaco is playing into his favor right now massively, but this is where we saw it earlier. Kai on Jones, now he looked for it on Domi. But Domi defending well here, and Kai just not able to do anything about it. Now through this hard hairpin section, you can see Jones just itching to get back through on Kai right there, and it's allowing Ali Avci, to catch up in the Renault.
Yeah, those two in 5th and 6th, Ali and Adrian, both of them hungry for the podium, I should expect, as we got Kai Baccini again looking at Domi. No move done yet again, but yeah, this battling not only holding the two Mercedes up behind the damaged Williams, but also it's going to leave them a little bit vulnerable to being caught by the Renault and AlphaTauri behind them as well.
There's been an exchange. It would appear Skybits has had an issue, and that's Little Bear getting ahead, and now Wisp and Max Inkster have had an exchange as well. It looks like Max Inkster is struggling in the Haas, Wisps into 10th position, and meanwhile this battle still unfolding for those podium positions. It's Jones in 4th position, following along with Kai Baccini in 3rd, and that's Domi defending hard in the Williams in 2nd.
Yeah, and Ali Avci is right on the tail now of Jones. He's really caught up over the past lap, and Domi and Kai Baccini actually starting to break away, and that's Adrian up the inside of the Renault.
Yeah, but Kai Baccini on the inside here, we've had an issue. That's Domi into him, and now they're stuck in the hairpin, and there's a huge bottleneck here, and Kai Baccini with a very, very risky move, it looked like, on the inside of that Williams, and maybe not enough space to make that through. But now we have a VSC deployed here, and we're going to have to look at who the losses, who took losses at the very least on their front end. You see Domi there. He was already missing that front left. It looks like that damage may have even gotten worse for him in the Williams.
VSC isn't for them though. It's Alpha SH who's off again out of turn 12. We're seeing a retirement there.
Yeah, I have to say Kai Baccini very fortunate here. He has no damage on that front end right now, and this VSC is going to let him get a bit of a gap away from that Williams. And now it's another exchange from what it would be, well, it appears there's been an issue. Jones has fallen into 6th now. Oh, and excuse me, as it was the drivers moving into the pit lane and the timing tower giving me a bit of an issue. But Gadwin has now rubber banded in front of the Mercedes into turn 1. So not entirely sure what we're witnessing here on the tower, but one thing I can say is Liam, who has come out of the pit lane, is in 3rd position, and he is now hunting down Adrian on 7-lap older rubber.
Yeah, definitely some issue between Gadwin and Jones there. Not quite sure how Gadwin is able to take the position under the VSC conditions, but like I said, Liam now into 3rd, a little bit slippery on those fresh medium compound tires, and it's not the sunniest day in Monaco. I haven't seen the weather report, whether we're going to see rain or not here.
Yeah, that's another big indicator. If anybody in the chat is able to give us a full-blown weather report, that would be fantastic, because we have been in the dark. I forgot about it entirely, but now as the Principality is getting quite dark and grim, it looks like we're going to be getting some rain here, Unicorn.
Yeah, the thing that made me think of that is Liam on these medium tires. Seems like a little bit of a tall order to go 30 laps on mediums, but if you got a message from your race engineer saying we're expecting rain in 10-15 lap time, medium tires would be an excellent decision, because it gives you the flexibility just in case there's a 5-lap, misjudgment with the weather forecast, and then he can switch onto mediums when the time comes.
And it's coming through in the chat now, Unicorn, and I'm going to say it here on the broadcast. Grab your friends, shout it from the rooftops, because we are going to have rain confirmed touching down here in Tier 2 Monaco action, and we are going to love to see it. Unicorn, you know how I feel about the rain, and we've seen it throughout this season and what it can do for these races, and the action that unfolds is just next to, oh, it's something completely different, and you guys are going to be in for a treat. Of course, it is Monaco. We may not see the amount of drama that we'd be used to in a rain race, but of course, it's going to throw a wrench in things, to say the least.
Well, I mean, we've already seen a few trips to the wall, as to be expected in a Monaco race, and with the addition of some wet weather, like you're saying, I know how much you love it, but Squid, just side note, has damaged his car, and he's dropping like a stone. He's lost about 3 positions over the course of this lap, but rain would absolutely throw a spanner in the works of this race, as Jones, looking to try and go past Gadwin down into the first corner, not making the move, but he had an excellent run out of the last corner.
Wheel to wheel right now, though, for the Red Bull of Liam and Adrian coming through Sector 1, Unicorn, and that is Liam finally dispatching the Alpha Tauri, and he is into second position, and we missed the lunge, but he got the move done, and very tight and hard to get done through there, I have to say. But, of course, into second now. He's going to try and fly away here and get as far away as possible to catch up with Kai Bacchini, who's currently in lead of this race.
Yeah, 9-lap old mediums. Again, it depends when this rain is going to hit. We can see that the clouds are really starting to form.
Oh, it's started to rain. Not only have they started to form, but I see Liam with some raindrops coming into that cockpit.
Yeah, so those drivers, this could really cost. I mean, Liam, he's not had too much of a trouble after that pit stop that he's had, but could he have stayed out for a little bit more? I do believe he started on soft, so he probably would have had to pit before it gets to intermediate conditions anyway.
We have a big train that's formed behind Ali Avci right now in Gadwin and Jones. They're within a second of that Renault, and DRS, I imagine, not going to be something these drivers can utilize for much longer. Max Inkster's just taken a 3-second time penalty, but right now we are focusing on this battle for fourth, as Gadwin and Jones both, I imagine, hungry for some extra points.
And yeah, Gadwin, again, seems there might be a little bit of a connection issue there with that Red Bull. A little bit laggy on my end, at least, and Jones sitting right behind him. It depends. You've got this huge, these 3-way battles as the two. Again, some weird things going on with that Red Bull car. Jones still sat behind him for the time being. Aliaviti looks like he might be suffering a little bit of damage on that Renault. He's missing both end plates. So that is going to cost him a huge chunk of time. Now, obviously, he's going to want to replace that. But does he come in now? It doesn't look like it's wet enough for intermediate tyres at the moment. But it's going to be soon. Does he stay out for a couple of laps? Or does he stay out? A-Lord in the Ferrari right down the back. He's already switched to intermediates.
So much difference in strategy that's going to come into play now. When is the rain going to be enough for these drivers to get on wets? Is the rain going to be enough for these drivers to get on wets? Those are the big questions, I imagine, going through the heads of these racers right now, as it's still Jones so tight to the rear of Gadwin. They've dropped off of Aliavci, but it's Jones just looking for a way to get by Gadwin, and as you said, Gadwin perhaps having a little bit of a connection issue. I see it from Jones as well, and who knows what's going on, as we've seen it throughout this season, on and off through these lobbies. But of course now Max Inkster has pit. Curious to see what he's doing over at Haas, but of course Jack S in 12th position as a result. Not too much action unfolding on this grid, but one thing I can say, it is Kai Bacchini leading this race. And if you're just tuning in, we're happy to have you here. My name is Strifium. Joining me is Unicorn. And we do this racing thing, well, quite regularly now, Unicorn. Tuesdays for MRL EU action. You can find us live for that at 8 p.m. BST. And then Thursdays, we have this race, Tier 2. Of course, we began things here at 9:15 p.m. BST. Tier 1 action still yet to come this evening. That will take to the circuit a little bit later, 11:15 p.m. BST. And of course, tomorrow we have MRL Club Division back here in Monaco as well at 8 p.m. BST. So a lot of racing action. And this weekend, we have our 100% MRL Endurance Series. For those of you who would like to join, it's welcome. First come, first serve to anyone who is in our Misfits community. And it's a 100% distance racing endeavor around, of course, this weekend, the iconic Temple of Speed. It's Monza. And, well, maybe you'll get to see the Ferraris win at least one time this weekend. And it could be in Monza virtually, and Well, I know I, as a Ferrari fan, would love to enjoy that.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to have too much fun in the real world when it comes to such a power-intensive track. But we do have now a large train. It was a sizable train for fourth. Now you can see whatever happens with Gadwin and Jones, they were falling off the back as Jones tries it up the inside of Gadwin. A very late move. That's just cost him an end plate. And you can see the AlphaTauri of Wisp. He's caught up as well as Crampy sliding in the background. So now Jones, that's cost him time to the Red Bull ahead, but also to the cars behind. And this battle for fourth place is sort of starting to spice up a little bit, as we've got a few cars vying for sixth, as well as it looks like Crampy and Jones diving into the pit lane.
Now, I'm going to share something with the viewers and maybe the drivers, at least the drivers that are going Sterling Moss styles, listening to the broadcast. But of course, the curious thing, and something I love about when it rains mid-race, is that usually these drivers are trying to stretch some kind of compound, whether it be the softs, the mediums, or the hards. The biggest issue with that is when those tires get worn and they're slipping, is it the water or is it the wear? And we see a variety of drivers jumping onto these intermediate compound tires. Now we saw the back half of the grid jump on them quite early, I would say. You can see the gaps, and the gaps have formed to be quite large on those intermediate compound tires now. Usually the cue is the DRS being deactivated by race control, but of course now
Liam, he's had a huge issue. That's not what he wants at all. Kai Bacchini comes into the pit lane, and Liam, going for the overtake around the Raskas, has been pulled in as well. I don't know whether he was intending to come into the pits or not, but whether he wanted it to or not, he was brought in there by the Mercedes.
Well, at the very least, they haven't lost any positions.
Yeah, for sure, but Liam, I'm still... I'm going to have to watch that one back, because he went for the inside and then Kai Bacchini is just like, excuse me, I'm going to the pit lane. And indeed he did. And that's put Adrian up into the lead. But Liam was absolutely catching Kai Bacchini on those much fresher mediums. And now he's still sat behind the Mercedes. Obviously the gap's still very close. But I'm sure he'd rather be in front rather than behind.
Yeah, so much confusion when the rain comes mid-race. I absolutely love it, but it seems that the call has been by the majority of these teams now, a majority of these drivers, to jump in onto those green-rimmed intermediate compound tires, and I'm extremely excited to see how the rain affects these guys because, well, some drivers a little bit more skilled, a little bit more patient in the wet. I know BTFU, just as a resident MRL driver, extremely good in the wet. You see him move past some very quick people when wet weather comes to play. Shout out to BT, by the way.
There you go. Their DRS has been disabled, like you were saying. That is usually a very good indicator of when it's time to switch on over to the wet compounds of tyres. And Gadwin, he hasn't pitted yet, but he's just about to come past the pit lane, so I'd very much expect him to come in. Probably just waiting, considering his teammate not too far up the road, and he don't really double stack, especially around Monaco. Yeah, he is coming in for the intermediates. The only person left on dry tyres right now is Maxime B in that Alfa Romeo right now.
One thing that is very curious while we were just riding on board with Liam there is that it just seems the rain is consistently getting a little bit worse as things go on. So who knows? It could not be entirely ruled out to see some heavy rain here. And, well, I don't think I need to say that we'd love to see some heavy rain. And I think another thing that some of these drivers would like to see at this point in the race, perhaps, is a safety car. And we may have just had one there. Jack S and Little Bear coming together. A little shaky from both of them. And that's a yellow flag up in Sector 3. Jack S struggling. Little Bear as well. And it's going to be Little Bear who opts to come into the pit lane as a result.
Also, we've got a little bit of a battle forming again for fifth place. Gadwin being dropped out of the pit lane ahead of Crampy and Aliavitsi here. And Domi as well. He's lurking not too far back in that Williams. Crampy through the tunnel. Obviously, the tunnel, being a tunnel, stays dry, as that's Aliavitsi into the wall through there. trying to take a bit too much speed, and that downforce that he's lost, costing him down into the chicane, and that's a 10-second time penalty he's picked up for corner cutting, and into the wall again through turn 12 for the Renault. Not a good start to the wet weather experience for him, and now he's got Domi coming up behind him.
See how he goes with that kind of wing damage here. He's definitely struggling there. It's Domi with a very, very neat move on the inside there, and Ali had to wait because he wanted to get into that pit lane there, and that's going to hold him up even more so. But now Crampy looking to the rear of the Finn. That's Gadwin ahead in the Red Bull coming up the hill out of turn 1 now. Look at the spray coming off of that Red Bull right now, Unicorn. I think heavy tires, or excuse me, the heavy wet conditions might prompt some full wets here eventually. We still have quite a ways to go here in this race. We don't know the full extent of the weather forecast. Of course, who knows? We could go back to dry weather here, but of course you are watching Round 7 Tier 2 MRL Racing action. Kai Bacchini, Liam, and Adrian currently your top 3 runners in this one.
Yeah, and it's not just the fact that obviously once the wet rain comes down, it gets harder to control the car due to the lack of grip, obviously a little bit more slippery, but also, like you were saying, that spray, the reduced visibility around the track, as tight and as tricky as Monaco. Visibility is key. You need to know, we were saying, you have to be so precise around here, and if you've got spray coming up, hitting your helmet, that's not going to help things, and that's when things happen drivers aren't going to want to, as I think Gadwin might have just lost his front left end plate, and he hasn't got that spray. He's the one creating it, so...
Yeah, one driver to keep your eyes on, everybody, if you're just tuning in, is Domi right now. He is caught up to this pack after passing through on Ali Avci, and now it's Crampy in 6th position. He's looking at Gadwin, and we have the onboard look, excuse me, from Domi. Things so tight, and if Monaco is hard to overtake in the dry, you can guarantee it's hard to overtake in the wet, but Domi went for it regardless. He had overtake in full swing there as well. And a very, very risky move from the Williams there, but I imagine wanting to put that car much further up on this grid than 7th is Domi, and well, he's got to get through somewhere. Risks need to be taken here.
Yeah, one thing about the new ERS and overtake button is, even though DRS is disabled, ERS isn't, so you can still get that burst of speed. Obviously, the driver ahead of you also entitled to do it as well. But yeah, it brings another dynamic to wet weather racing in particular, because like we were saying, it doesn't get disabled, so they are fully capable of giving their car a little bit extra, as well as obviously putting the fuel mixture up. And you can see Crampy, he's carrying a lot more speed through there than Gadwin, but he's picked up a 3-second time penalty as a result. But Gadwin and Domi up the inside past Crampy.
It looks like there's been a retirement, and that's Little Bear in the McLaren. I think he's coming to the pit lane, and he's opted to just bow out of this one. Things getting a little bit too much for him. The walls, I imagine he's not having the race he wanted, and he's just going to call it there. But Domi and Gadwin battling now into turn 1 there. We saw a little bit of an exchange through the timing tower, but it's still Gadwin in 5th position. Domi very tight to him. And as you said, Gadwin missing a little bit of that front-end aero performance right now, and it's going to cost him even more so in these wet conditions.
Yeah, Gadwin playing a very, very risky game. He had his overtake button enabled not only down the start finish straight, perfectly fine, but around turn 1 as well. And we all know what happens when you've got overtake enabled maybe a little bit too early on exit of a corner, but having it enabled around a corner in the wet with damaged front wing, he's very, very skilled, or very, very lucky, or maybe a little bit of both, to keep that car pointing straight with Domi still behind him as they come down into the chicane.
Well, another battle that's heating up is this battle for the win, and that's Liam and Kai Bacchini within a second of one another. And Liam has shown great pace throughout this race so far, but things are a little bit tighter right here in the midfield. And Domi, who was, of course, in that top running positions earlier in this race, going to be looking to get back through into the front of this grid, and Gadwin right now is the only hurdle in his way.
Yeah, and obviously we're so close, to the start of the season.
There it is. A little bit of a shuffle. Oh,
Domi, into the wall, and that's Crampy. He's been collected as well by the Williams. Both Domi and Crampy still soldiering through, whereas Gadwin a little bit more costly for him.
On board there with Domi. It appears Gadwin just went and kept his optimal racing line there. He had a little bit more space to give, I think, from my end, but of course we'll have to see what the stewards have to say about it post-race. That is not looking good on either driver. Now, Gadwin in 6th position. It looks like there's an exchange of positions here, maybe some illegal overtaking nonsense or shenanigans, if you will. You see now Gadwin in 7th position, Crampy into 6th, and we'll see what happens here, but it looks like we're back to green flag racing, and that's Liam right now. Coming out of turn 1, very close to Kai Bacchini, and now we are in a fight for the lead of this race here on lap 22.
So a few things to note from that. Kai Bacchini picked up a 5-second penalty for ignoring yellow flags. So that could cost him massively at the end of this race. And then what was going on with these guys down in 6th and behind? Crampy picked up a 5-second penalty for a severe collision with, I'm not quite sure, but then that led to Jones. He pulled off to the side of the track. Gadwin had issues as well, and that's a carnage as Aliavizzi has got past the Red Bull of Gadwin, who is completely missing his front wing due to whatever happened down at the... as Jack S has retired from this race.
Hate to see exchanges like that for our friends in the chat. Of course, we appreciate you respecting the stewards and letting the stewards deal with it. We know what, tensions run high, frustrations in the chat. Things can get carried away there. Of course, stewards handle these things very well. Now, currently leading Kai Bacchini. He's pulled away from Liam a little bit. Adrian doing good in 3rd. I asked Wisp before this race, where are you going to finish, my friend? He says 2nd. He laughed and said, no, as long as I finish in the points, I'm happy. And right now, I think he's got a good grin on his face. He's having a consistent drive. He's in P4 right now. He's had a good race so far in 4th position. And his teammate in the other AlphaTauri is going to be putting a smile, I imagine, on his face as well. Because, AlphaTauri is in a good championship position right now for the combined constructors.
Yeah, I was just going to draw attention to the AlphaTauri guys. They've got a combined position gain of 10, 3 for Adrian and 7 for Wisp. And yeah, a good chunk of points for the pair of them. If they can finish the race here, Squid's had an issue, it would seem. Through the final couple of corners, he's lost an end plate and was just super slow coming onto the start-finish straight. But it is now Adrian coming past the back marker of Skybits and another VSC here.
Yeah, curious to know what happened there. Couple of slow cars. Aliavchi's into the pit lane now, and he's gone onto some hard compound tires here, Unicorn.
Now that's interesting because it's absolutely still wet around here. The rain's still coming down as well, so I don't see this track drying anytime soon. As Jones has left the session, which...
And Kai Bacchini has come in, and he's come in on for a fresh set of intermediate compound tires here under this VSC, and he's utilizing this opportunity. But somebody else who came in was Liam, and he's gotten out ahead of Kai Bacchini on these full wet compound tires now. And we're going to have to see what kind of role those tires play, as Kai Bacchini is going to technically be on the quicker tire. We don't know if it's time for full wets. Squid is the only other driver on them, and now Domi's taken a drive-through penalty for speeding under the VSC conditions. And that is some big bad news for the Williams camp right now. Squid and Domi, who started this race so well, not having the races they wanted to have.
Gadwin, he got past Skybits through Casino and then spun the car, and I don't know to the extent of the damage, but he's having a huge trouble trying to control that Red Bull. Trying to get a good look at that front wing. It's still there, but it doesn't look like either of the end plates are, and it looks like he suffered a bit more damage on the right hand side of it as well, so he's going to be very slow at the moment.
Well, Aliavchi on these hards is most certainly struggling right now, as Crampy in 9th position has caught up to him massively, and now he's going to have to, I imagine, come in for some more tires in that Renault, and he is. We'll have to see which tires it's going to be, though, for the Renault. Only two drivers opting for those full wets at the moment.
Yeah, Squid's just followed suit, like you said, with Liam coming into those full wets. So I'll have to see. Jones, he's just pitted for fresh inters. So that's what Mercedes are going for in terms of strategy. As Kai Bacchini.
You guys need to have patience when you're driving through this hill. Kai Bacchini just into the rear of the Red Bull here in the raining conditions right now. It's very clear Liam on these slower tires. He's made up 6 seconds in a lap. So now stewards going to have their hands full throughout the end of this race. Of course, Liam currently in the lead on the slower tires. Monaco, a circuit where patience is of the utmost importance, causing a massive amount of issues today for the Tier 2 grid.
Yeah, the rain's not going to be doing them any favours in that regard. And also, I imagine we've got this tunnel section where it's dry, so the wet tyres, especially the full wets that Liam's got on there, they're not going to like that section all too well. But Adrian has joined the fight for the lead almost. He's just a couple of seconds back now, and with Liam going quite slow on these full wet tyres, Adrian could pick up another position, and his teammate Wisp is quite far behind right now. But if the intermediates continue to outpace the wets so significantly, as Kai Bacchini comes into the pits, he's going to presumably get a new front wing after that collision up the hill. So that is now Adrian up into P2, and his teammate Wisp is currently in Sector 3. Is he going to be able to beat out the Mercedes, who hasn't got a new front wing? He's just like he's serving a drive-through penalty there over here.
Liam on a serious gamble right now, hoping for some more rain, because these wets are costing him a massive amount of time right now, and it's a quick lap around here. Adrian's already within a second of him right now, but of course we've seen it throughout this race. Overtaking, drivers need to have patience. There's not too many areas where you can get clear-cut overtakes, especially in these downpouring conditions. The tunnel is an ideal area, of course, because you have a little bit of dry tarmac to go. And you can see now, here we go, Adrian on the inside through the tunnel. Very tricky bit of circuit here, as there's a bit of elevation change through the pavement, but it is going to be the AlphaTauri out in front of the race leader right now, but he's forced to cut through that chicane, and he's taken a penalty as a result, Unicorn.
Yeah, it's interesting to me that he tried going through tunnel for the overtake, because that gives you the outside into turn 10, the entrance to the Nouvelle chicane. So, in my eyes, maybe a little bit early for the move.
Domi's just unlapped himself, and you see now Adrian had to concede the position back to Liam. I believe that was race control telling him that was illegal, my friend. You need to give that position back, but it's all for naught regardless, because now Liam has come in, and I could only assume he's going to be coming in for some of those green intermediate compound tires, and there it is, the switch. Now let's see where he comes out relative to Kai. Now Kai is back into the pit lane. He's come in for another set of intermediate compound tires, and we'll have to see where this puts Wisp. Wisp now in 4th position. He's crossed into 3rd ahead of Kai Bacchini. Liam has also been overtaken, it would seem, by the AlphaTauri, and that is absolutely wild. It's Adrian and Wisp leading this race right now for AlphaTauri. It's a 1-2, and wow. Liam currently at 2.5 seconds is the gap. He is in 3rd position. Kai looks like he's just 12.5 seconds behind him, and now we have just 13 laps to go to the end of this race, and a massive amount of dynamics being thrown into the equation. It looks like Jones has had an issue of some kind, of connection issue of sorts, and it's Crampy right now in the Haas in 7th position, looking to catch up to him.
Yeah, a few things there. Obviously, Liam now on fresh intermediate tyres. Not quite sure how long we can expect these tyres to last. Whether the pair of AlphaTauris ahead of him are going to have to come into the blitz. I think they should be all right to the end of this race. 12 more laps, put them at just over 20 laps old apiece. Whereas Liam on those fresh tyres, he's already catching Wisp, as we've got a yellow flag. That's a full safety car.
Oh, and we have a full safety car. That's A-Lord Unicorn, and it appears he's crashed in Sector 1. You can see there as Jones and Crampy pass him by. And that is a full course safety car here. And well, lap 28 heroics, I guess. The rain is coming down here in Monaco. If you're just tuning in, Tier 2 racing action. We still have Tier 1 later on at 5:15 p.m. CDT. That's, of course, 11:15 p.m. BST. We hope you've been enjoying the action, and if you have, help us out. Hit that follow button, because we're live regularly. We have races Tuesdays, Thursdays, Fridays, and most Saturdays as well. And coming soon, on a Thursday, we're going to be having our Oceanic division as well. So, racing for all over the globe, and that is, of course, open to everybody, wherever you may be in the world. If you're able to race, we're happy to watch you, and we'll see how you go around the calendar. And that'll be kicking off October 1st around Austria, the Asian/Oceanic division.
Yeah, now, if you're Adrian at the front of this race, you've got a 25-second gap to your teammate, and that's about to get absolutely demolished by this safety car. And he is going to take advantage. He is going to come into the pit lane. I don't think he needs a front wing change. And Wisp would be able to come in as well if he wants a fresh set of inters as well. He wouldn't get stuck behind Adrian, given the gap.
Yeah, it would lose him some positions, though, of course. I think he would lose out and come out in 4th position if Wisp comes in. Adrian has a little bit of a different situation, and you see now Wisp opting not to pit, and if he was going to do it, that was his window to do so, but he's going to really risk the track position here. He's going to use track position as best he can, and we've seen how it plays out for some of these drivers. I don't care what tires you're on and how fast you are. The track is king here around Monaco.
Yeah. Wisp on the restart and until the end of the race here, he's just going to have to park his car and stop Liam and Kai Bacchini, because Kai Bacchini, he's going to catch up here because of the safety car, and he's just going to have to, say, I'm sorry, but this is no longer an F1 car. There's a combine harvester, and it's going to block every single inch of this track.
Yeah, it is definitely going to be a very unique restart here, as we're going to have a rolling safety car enforced restart, it would seem. As, of course, when that safety car does come in, Adrian will, in fact, become one with the safety... No, I'm just kidding. Of course, he's going to be pacing this grid here ahead of this racing start. And it's going to be a rolling start through into turn 1, and we'll have to see who's going to be risking some very, very early overtakes.
Now, I just had a quick look at the penalty situation for the leaders. Liam, right now, completely clean on that front. Everyone else up at the front, a couple of penalties to their names. Again, 5-second penalties. Can't tell if they've served it in the pits or not. But Liam, none to speak of whatsoever. So, very, very good news for him. Interesting enough, though, Adrian, obviously, right now behind the safety car. The cars behind him, that is Wisp, Liam, and Kai Bacchini, obviously already caught him up. But he does have Clodders in the Ferrari, 10th place right now. Obviously, a back marker for the cars behind him, in between him and his teammate, so he could cause a little bit of problem down into turn 1.
Yeah, Cotter's in a unique position there, because it's a tough circuit to really, well, where is it that he's going to be able to pull off inside of 3 turns exactly?
Very difficult. He's going to have to come up the hill, which is going to cost him a huge amount of time, I would imagine, because he's not going to be able to get to the tunnel, which is an excellent place, or just before it, to let people by under blue flags. But obviously, like you said, that's going to be a little bit, basically half a lap, and the stewards are not going to allow that. So he's probably going to have to pull off up the hill, which, if the guys behind him are side by side, is not going to go well. So this safety car restart for Wisp, Liam, and Kai Bacchini, and potentially Maxime B as well. He's on fresh meters behind them, and should be able to catch up. But yeah, he's got a sway of back markers as well.
I think we may be going around one more time here. Of course, we'll find out in just a moment, but I would like to take this time to thank everybody who's tuning into the racing action. We'd love to have you here. This is for you, of course. Thank you to everybody who's followed today. Of course, thank you to everybody who's been cheering, subscribing, and following or viewing us for, well, the 7 months now that we've been at things. And I would just like to say a big shout out and congratulations to all of us, as we've now just hit 600 followers here on the Misfits Racing League channel, and I have to say we're extremely excited about that. It's been a very, very fun experience, and big shout out to you guys, the community. It's you guys that we're racing for today. Of course, Monaco Grand Prix action, Tier 2, Tier 1 in just a bit. I think it's about 45 minutes time until the Tier 1 racers are set to go around here in Monaco, but safety car is going around again here on lap 31.
Yeah, and we are just... There's only a few drivers that actually haven't caught up here, but it is an interesting way that all of these drivers are actually lined up behind the safety car, because it's definitely not in order that they are in. There's plenty of back markers sprinkled in for those drivers further ahead to catch up. For example, Jones, he's behind almost the entire grid, despite being in 7th place right now. So a very interesting restart is going to be for him, carving his way through the back markers.
Oh, what a wild race this has been, and Cotter's not able to really catch up to things. You just see this grid from 1st down to 9th, and then Cotter's unfortunately unable to unlap himself, as is the drivers behind him, Gadwin, Ali, Avci, Max Inkster, and Skybits. And, well, it's tough. It's tough for him in that Ferrari, and he had... I'm going to say, just by where he is on the grid, he's having a much better race today than he did on Tuesday, Cotters. Of course, we saw him on Tuesday in the Red Bull. We brought it up earlier on the cast. But into 10th, unfortunately lapped, and I can't really blame him. The amount of pit stops we've seen here in this race, you can see there on screen now, has been monumental. And it's race control now telling us the safety car is coming in.
Yeah, the other thing is that Cotters being there is going to back the likes of Wisp and Liam and Kai back a few corners for when Adrian restarts his race. So it's going to play nicely into Adrian's hands here. Yes, he has gone now. And where are everyone coming out? What are they going to do? Down into turn 1. Connor's actually got a better restart, I think, than the cars behind him. But he's going to have to pull off here for the hill. There he goes to the right-hand side, letting as many cars as he can past.
Oh, and it's Liam right now. He's looking at Wisp already, Unicorn, and they're wheel-to-wheel, and there's a bit of an issue, and that's going to be Kai sliding through into 2nd position. And it's Liam back into 3rd, and that is a major exchange here already, and Kai is going to be laughing about that, I imagine, in the cockpit, because all it took was Liam to get aggressive with Wisp there in Sector 1, and Kai was able to slip right through.
Yeah, when you're a race, especially around Monaco, and you're just gifted 2 positions like that, there's nothing more you can wish for. And now Kai Bacchini free to unleash himself, go and hunt down Adrian, and also that race win. You've got 7 laps to do it here at Monaco, and everything restarting here with just a few laps to go. The action now completely revitalized.
Well, you can see the gap to leader on screen right now. We saw Cotters was lapped, which means that gap from 1st down to 9th there should realistically be a lot closer than it is, but we see already there's a 13.6 second differential from 9th to 1st, and Adrian's had a fantastic restart here.
Yeah, and it really goes to show that those couple of corners that Monaco has at the end of its lap can really pay dividends if you're at the front of a safety car restart, especially with the likes of back markers causing a little bit of a problem. Meanwhile, Crampy, he's not too far off the back of Maxime B. He might be able to sneak past if he can get the pace. His tyres are a lot older, though, than that of the Alfa Romeo. And that's Skybits, I believe. He's pointing the wrong way up the hill. And let's have a look, see if he's got any damage on that McLaren. But he's struggling to get it turned around. Doesn't look like he's got any damage, but he's lost a hell of a lot of time to Gadwin ahead of him.
Oh, things are so shaky here. Even I'm shaking. I don't know what's going to happen here, Unicorn, because one thing that isn't visible on our timing tower, of course, that the viewers, I imagine, are going to be starting to clue in on.
Kai Bacchini and Liam have had an issue into the Novell chicane.
Oh, no. Kai in 4th now. Does he have damage? Does not.
Doesn't.
However, Liam
took
does.
all of it.
Well, that's very unfortunate because it's going to cost Liam a lot of time.
And it's happened again for another Red Bull. Gadwin's had pretty much an identical issue, pointing the wrong way in the entrance to the Nouvelle chicane. And it looks like he's suffering similar amounts of damage as well.
Well, Monaco never ceases to disappoint when we race around here. And, well, Domi in 7th position is now hunting down the Haas of Crampy. And we saw him unlap himself earlier, and very fortunate that he did, because now looking for a wheel-to-wheel move on the Haas.
Yeah, it's a tricky one, especially through, up into Casino. You can get past here, but it's one of those places where it's 50-50. Either goes beautifully and you look like a hero, or there are cars in walls, and that's when you don't want to be in that cockpit. But so far, Domi just biding his time, sitting behind that Haas for the time being, as Maxime B getting a nice little slide out of that 8th turn into the tunnel, little sort of spread out. Up the front though, Wisp still ahead of Kai Bacchini for that final podium position, and Liam ahead of them. Damaged, but it's so late in the race. He's just sort of, trundling through with that damaged front wing. It's a difficult place to overtake, and he's going to take full advantage of that fact here.
Well, dare I say, it's time for wet tires here, Unicorn. Look at the amount of standing water we have on the circuit now. It's absolutely bucketing down here. Look at the spray we have on board with Kai Bacchini right now, and he's looking at Wisp. It's so risky here. He's got him on the outside right now. Wisp breaks off, holds his line there, through onto that inside curbing, and it's just so intense. Look at the amount of visibility, or lack of. And now Liam with the wall, that's Wisp through, and now Kai's going to slot through as well, and that wing damage costing Liam a little bit there. And now there's a yellow flag up through Sector 2. Nothing too much going on, but you can just see the loss of grip as they come up through here because there's so much water. Not able to get anything on these intermediate compound tires.
Yeah, you're 100% right. It's absolutely like skating on ice as Wisp and Kai Bacchini, they've had an issue, and it's Liam sneaking back past around the hairpin. And that could be Maxime B as well. He could sneak past. He's got past Wisp. Kai Bacchini with a better exit from that, if you want to call it that. But now that's a spin. That's the AlphaTauri of Wisp. You've got Maxime B. Everyone's just sliding. These tires are not the tires to be on. But if you want to pit, you're going to lose so many positions if other people don't do it. So it's a 50-50. But Wisp now down into 7th place after those spins, collisions, slides, whatever you want to call it. It's just a Liam. He's had another issue through the Nouvelle chicane, and that's going to cost him time. Maxime B, you can see them all sliding out of the Nouvelle chicane.
Ali Avci's just made a very, very neat move on Cotters into the inside of that chicane, and he's taken 10th position away from the Ferrari. And now we have this massive train forming here, and now there's a big move out from Domi there, and he's cost himself a massive amount of wing damage. And I don't know what we are watching now.
Domi into the pit. Is he going to not only repair that wing, but to switch onto the full wets? There's a Ferrari pit crew coming out as well for Cotters. What tyres is the Williams going to go on? Possibly too late. There's so few laps here. But it is full wets for Domi in the Williams. As Maxime B, he's side by side with Liam. This is the final podium position. Up the hill into the left hander. Liam Y, that's Maxime B up the inside, sidewards as they approach Casino. But he's got the move done. Wisp now. He's tight on the rear of Liam once again. This time, though, it's for 4th place. And oh my goodness, this race has just been the gift that keeps on giving. And Domi picks up a 5-second penalty for crossing the white line on pit exit. So even if those wet tyres grant him a little bit of extra speed, that could cost him at the end of this race. As you can see, Aniavizzi, he's struggling out of that 2nd sector hairpin section.
Yeah, could be a a race that keeps on giving. That is for the viewers, of course, but for these drivers, and for the drivers as well. But I'll tell you one thing: the stewards aren't too happy about the amount of giving that's going on around in this race right now. And we'll have to see what they have to say come next round. Of course, Tier 1 racing action going to be happening not too long from now. It's going to be happening, of course, at 5:15 p.m. CDT. 11:15 p.m. BST, and that's going to be happening following Tier 2 action. Right now, Wisp less than half a second with Verstappen on his rear. And now it appears that Verstappen has maybe made contact. We heard a loud clunk coming out of that racing point. We'll have to take a look on for damage.
He was side by side with the Alpha Tauri. He wasn't able to get the move, and he just sort of got squeezed into the wall. Even if there is damage, the contact wasn't too bad. It doesn't look like he suffered any. His front wing is intact as Crampy comes into the pit lane. In that Haas. This is a good place to lose a lot of places, but it's Wisp past Liam. And Liam now vulnerable to Verstappen in the racing point behind him now. But it is still Adrian with a 14-second lead, despite the fact that the safety car only ended about 7 laps ago or so.
I imagine the reaction to a lot of these drivers when they had the weather report coming down from Jeff was, well, I might not be able to repeat the majority reaction here on the broadcast, but interesting is the word I'm going to use, considering what we've seen in this race.
Yeah, definitely not what people would be hoping for going into this race. You want to... Everyone dreads Monaco. Well, most people do. There are a few people out there probably dream of having lovely races here, but the majority, Monaco is a daunting track as Verstappen, I think he's had a lot of contact with the Red Bull ahead of him. Quite sure whose end plate that was. Something went flying. But when you add rain into the mixture as well, if you don't like rain and you don't like Monaco, this is an absolute nightmare because they can't even pit for wets unless they want to lose a huge portion of places. And it's battle for 5th place. Domi, he is on those full wet tyres, but it's not. It's actually the Renault of Aliavici, the lapped car there. So much spray, it's hard to identify them in these conditions. But Verstappen, can he get past Liam now as they go up the hill into Casino? We've seen a few moves up the inside. He's lost an end plate, but he is past the Red Bull.
Yeah, Liam's struggling a lot here. He's got not much of that front right end left, and it's Ali Avci, who is still lapped, who is following along, and Domi there in 7th position now has caught up with the Red Bull of Liam. And we have this rear view shot of Verstappen coming down through that hairpin section, and you can just see how close these drivers are here.
Yeah, and there is standing water and a lot of it on track, and that's going to give Domi the huge advantage.
Look at the visibility change. They're in the tunnel now. We're on board with Domi. He's going for the move on Liam. A little bit of a brush there. He's on the full wets, and then you come back out of the tunnel, and the visibility it's gone. It's just completely gone. And now Domi, with a cut of the chicane there, having to take the off, well, the easy way out, taking a penalty there. Liam into 7th position, but you know he's struggling on these intermediate compound tires. Look at the amount of standing water. It was almost certainly time to jump onto these wet compound tires. You look at the amount of time that Domi is gaining on these racers right now. We're on the final lap of this race as Adrian is currently leading things for AlphaTauri. And what a drive it's been for him, and he, I imagine, is going to be struggling just the same as the rest of this grid on these intermediates, but he has such a gap ahead. It has equalized where Kai Bacchini stands, and Maxim, Wisp, I don't think they're going to be able to get any further positions, but somebody who is, given they're able to get by these cars, and just look at the speed out of the Williams. Wheel to wheel with Wisp. Wow, into 4th position is Domi.
Yeah, absolutely incredible stuff. He's really climbed on those wet tyres. And the one thing you got to commend him on is that he hasn't suffered any damage. It's quite easy to take damage around Monaco, especially when you're trying to carve through the field, but he's done it. He's got no damage, and he's just going to be able to take that Williams to the end now, obviously on the final lap. But if he'd have suffered damage on any of those overtakes, it would have been the end of the race for him.
I think good old Frank might have given him some solid advice and told him to go grab a yacht and park it on the street circuit instead, because there's plenty to view as he come out of the tunnel here. And we can see as he comes through into the chicane, he's having a much easier time regardless of the lockup on these full wet compound tires.
Yeah, as Adrian, he crosses the line and wins, and he's absolutely miles ahead of Kai Bacchini, his nearest competitor.
What a race. What a race it's been. Finally, the first driver catching that checkered flag. Kai Bacchini crossing that line 2nd. Maxim now coming down that final straight. He takes it, and it's a second position for him. Kai Bacchini getting dropped back on penalties, and Domi crosses fourth here on the full wet compound tires to finish this race off. And it's Wisp in the other AlphaTauri, rounding out your top 5 racers here at race finish here in Monaco. Of course, a lot of penalties, I think, still to come down here on this grid, but we'll have to see if the gaps were enough to promote any positions. Verstappen in 6th position. After what a dynamic race it was for him. 19 laps on the inters. Liam in 7th, who started this race on pole position, which really does give you an idea of well, how dynamic this race was. Look at the loss leaders and the winners here in this one. Look at those position changers. It's Jones in P8 in Mercedes, Crampy in 9th. Cotters ends up getting 10th position after all in the Ferrari. Max Inkster in 11th position, Ali Afshi in 12th, and it's Gadwin now. Coming through the final 2 turns in the Red Bull, he will be coming across in 13th position and last to finish this race. Of course, 20 racers began action here in Monaco, 13 remaining after dry to light rain to heavy wet conditions, and what a gloomy day it was here around the Principality Unicorn.
Yeah, Liam's lucky there. At the end of that race, he lost his entire front wing coming out of the Nouvelle Chicane. So if he'd had anyone closer to the rear of him, he could have lost even more positions. But yeah, unfortunate for him, but we saw some stellar drives as well. A lot of people benefiting greatly. A lot of people having great drives at the start. A lot of positions gained in those opening few laps. The likes of Squids, who then, lose out later on in the race. So just an absolutely crazy race. A lot of safety car restarts, and that really bunched the field up for what was an excellent finish.
Excellent finish indeed. Adrian with the race win for AlphaTauri. He started this one in 6th. Maxim B, the Canadian driver for Alfa Romeo, he started in 8th, and he comes across the line here in 2nd position. And Kai Bacchini, after what a long dynamic race here, you see there, started in 2nd. He finishes here on the podium regardless. What a race it was. You can see Domi there in 4th, Wisp in 5th, Verstappen in 6th, Liam in 7th, Jones in 8th, Crampy in 9th, Cotters rounding out your top 10, Max Inkster in 11th, Ali Afji in 12th, and it's Gadwin, the last driver to finish this one here in 13th. Of course, Skybits down through with Squid, Aylord, Jackass, Little Bear, Alpha, and Undertaker. Unfortunately, unable to finish out this one. Of course, I can't blame them. We'll take a look at the tires. Look at what these drivers had to encounter today around Monaco. The confusion is definitely in full force around the Principality, and look at the penalties. Of course, the stewards will most definitely be having a look at the race director. So news to come through on that ahead of the next round, of course. We'll be looking for onboards from all of our drivers. We are going to be getting set to raid somebody, and then we are going to be back in just over half an hour's time for Tier 1 racing action, and we hope you join us because, well, the last time we saw Tier 1 racing action, the gap from 1st to, I believe, 16th was less than 8 tenths.